it's hard to get any movie made. We just had a lot of steps. We brought on amazing creative producers, then Madelaine, and then Creator Plus came on board to finance it and produce it. And they were so supportive and were like, hey, let's go, let's shoot this. And we shot it just a few months after they came on board, which is an amazing timeline for anyone who gets the film financed. And
what? She must have logged on last time she was over.
Did you see what Jane just posted?
How the hell could it have possibly been reactivated?
Did this girl frame her teacher?
Who's behind Jane?
I thought you wrote that.
Huh?
I'm pretty sure it wasn't me.
I know it wasn't me.
Sabrina.
Great, how are you?
Doing well.
Yes.
Where are you at?
I am in West Hollywood or Hollywood at the moment.
Wow, it looks very fancy. I'm like, are you in some like speakeasy or something in the background? You got the poster, but it's all
no, we're in the studio, but they really did some fun stuff with the walls here.
Yeah, they did. I'm like, you could be anywhere, and nowhere to be found, basically.
Exactly.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, like, either I miss all the high school drama, or this is all girls school is a whole new level of things going on. I don't know if you remember in your day, or I didn't have all the cell phone use that was this intense and crazy with the social media, but wow, things have changed, right?
Things have changed. I will say all girls schools are a totally different thing, but I think high school, we kind of sometimes block out some of the drama. In writing the script, I just remembered stuff that I had totally forced out of my brain. It brought a lot to the surface. So
did you go to an all-girls school?
I did, yeah.
Ah, okay. So this is close to home. You had some insider knowledge here.
Exactly. But this is not a real school. This is, a heightened version of that reality. And I wrote the film with Rishi Rajani, who did not go to an all-girls school, but he also
clearly
felt similar, pressures of that kind of college prep environment.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure too. I mean, but like it's crazy to see kind of how today's youth is like using social media to deal with certain things, and it's like it's not as crazy as what happens in this story, but just like there's a lot of reality to it too that spin. You can tell, like, oh, I could imagine these situations are just like feelings being brought up by the method of today's society, which is so kind of crazy when you think about it, right?
Completely. I mean, not, straight from reality to the page, but there are a lot of things that happened in my high school actually around social media as it was kind of beginning to take on the power position it plays today that inspired the film.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. So I'm trying to feel like, you know what? Maybe Olivia here is the problem maker, not Jane, as much as we're led to believe. There's one thing about being inspired by something, but then going out and executing certain things. So it's like there's a fine line of interesting, kind of sides you could, in a sense, take. Did you want it to write it in this sort of way where like, you're thinking like, is one person at some point to blame or take responsibility for apparent influences, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's definitely Olivia who's to blame, and she does create this whole thing, but I definitely wanted to keep people guessing through the course of the film. She believes she has to succeed, and she has this very specific version of what that looks like to her, and she will do whatever it takes to get there. She will succeed at all costs, and when the progress she has made is threatened, she will double down and continue to try and make it work. But because she is our, unreliable narrator, you are left guessing, okay, did this actually happen? What didn't? Did she create certain situations and capitalize on them, or did she create everything?
When you think about kind of overachievers, a lot of overachievers in a sense are people who are so driven, motivated, are very successful people, athletes, and people and sometimes in the corporate world, a lot of founders and CEOs. Like these are some very powerful people. A lot of times are very successful people too. But it's an interesting thing to look at a side of overachievers. At what level will you stop or kind of not stray away? Is that sort of a mentality you wanted to incorporate too, of like this is a very specific personality type too of certain people, not that everyone has or can relate to, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, she is an overachiever, Olivia. She's very type A and focused. There is nothing wrong with being an overachiever or being type A. It does not mean you will turn into Olivia. She is someone who is also grappling with grief, severe anxiety, is not getting help, and is in a movie. So of course there are these elements of fiction and heightened reality. I think what is the truth in that is this internal pressure, this pressure certain people put on themselves. And this is such an extreme version of that, but really talking about the way that high functioning young people in particular, but anyone, puts this pressure on themselves. And if things don't go well, and if things don't go the way you plan, how do you deal with that? And she takes an unhealthy, unrealistic path. But, you know, I think those feelings are true.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like, I feel like you're a younger person yourself too, a younger director. Do you feel it helped you bonding with these actresses who are, you know, sort of not far removed from your age group, but still kind of maybe the generation before in a way, or the cross generation? Do you feel that helped you connect with them and kind of understand them more? Had you been maybe like 20 years older or whatnot, you know, did that play a role in a sense?
I think to a certain degree, you know, I'm not so far removed from high school, so I remember a lot of it. We have, you know, the actors have an age range on the film,
Sure.
but some of them are a different generation than me, and they grew up with a different relationship to social media in high school. But I do think it helps, you know, you see sometimes much older people directing movies set in high school, and you forget what it's like. And so remembering parts of it and that reality, I think, brought us together.
Interesting. Yeah, I wondered if that was like a kind of a connecting point in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you write this movie, did you have multiple endings or alternate endings? I always like asking that too. If there's different variations that you were debating about going with, or what you chose is what you ultimately wanted from the start.
No, it was always the ending. I mean, I think
Wow.
there's the life beyond the film, what Olivia goes on to do, that's up for debate, and there are a few directions that could take, but she always got away with it. You know, this is her story, this is her perspective. I always wanted that feeling that she carries this journey with her, and I want it to feel eerie and leave you thinking, oh my God, she did what, you know? But it's also a kind of a comment on social media, how you can present certain things to the world, but the reality of what you're going through is very different. But no, I always wanted it to be a dark thriller ending.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think it was a great choice in that sense too. You've done a lot of shorts in a sense and been doing it for a while. Why was this the movie that you wanted to, was this maybe the first opportunity you got to do a feature? How did this movie ultimately come up for you? Because this is your first feature length. You've done shorts before, so it's not the first movie you ever direct or anything like that. But what made this be your first kind of feature length?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it with my writing partner, Rishi Rajani, and it was always intended for me to direct. I wrote this to direct this, you know, and it was part of what I was just saying. I think, you know, there's always that conversation of why is this your story to tell? There are pieces of it that are personal to me, but also, you know, not being so far from high school, I felt like I was really the right person to say, hey, I can tell a story right now and direct this film that's set in this specific world, in this specific place. And I really wanted to, you know, after writing it, I just was dead set on directing it and bringing it to life. You know, it's such a fun world, and these characters are so awesome. And I really was excited to push it forward.
Was it hard to get this movie made or kind of pitch it and all that, since it is kind of your baby, right? You wrote it and ended up directing. Luckily for you that you were able to do all that and accomplish that, not having to pass it off in a sense. But how hard was it to get this made and to bring it to life?
I think it's hard to get any movie made.
Yeah.
You know, we just had a lot of steps. We brought on amazing creative producers, then Madelaine, and then Creator Plus came on board to finance it and produce it. And they were so supportive and were like, hey, let's go, let's shoot this. And we shot it just a few months after they came on board, which is an amazing timeline for anyone who gets the film financed. And we really just had a supportive team who were all really excited about seeing this come to life.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned there's some personal things that kind of, you know, involved you in it. Are you able to share with certain things that you found yourself putting of your own experiences into this movie?
Sure. Yeah. A lot of it was the world I'm familiar with. I went to a private all-girls school, not dissimilar. But also, you know, just that feeling of pressure. I remember the college admission process. I ended up going to NYU for film, But I just remember the environment was so stressful, so tense. And there was this feeling of, if I didn't get into the place I wanted to go to, my life would be over. And, you know, I saw that in my peers. And I remember I got an early admission. And I remember looking around my classmates, and who many hadn't applied early. And there was this, I could see with the removal, that pressure and that anxiety, and the way that people just made themselves sick. Stress is horrible and a killer. And so really kind of showing that internal pressure. There was no one telling me, you know, you must do this. It was me telling myself that.
Yeah, and it's like when you're in that moment, it's sort of life or death. You almost feel like the world's going to crumble, right? If you don't get into it, especially at that age, you know, that's the biggest thing about to happen in your life. So you treat it as like the biggest thing.
Well, it's the first time you're making decisions that you feel like will affect the rest of your life, or like an adult, for most people, not for everyone. But that's kind of why I love high school movies is, you know, you get to explore these genres, you know, that are very big, like thriller, horror, comedy, that because in high school, everything feels so serious and the emotions feel so big and so larger than life. So I think these genres in filmmaking are really the most fit to hold them a lot of the time.
What kind of movies do you want to do next? Is there anything on deck that you've written or anything you're planning to? You want to tell these movies of these kind of, you know, teenagers? And is there anything you're kind of setting out to do next?
I am planning on moving away from high school next. I feel like I really dove into that and did that. I do love complicated female characters, not exclusively, but that's something I'm very interested in. And definitely just showing different worlds and themes. For me to get excited about directing something, it has to say something that I'm excited to talk about and dig into.
Mm-hmm. And you want to do both the writing and directing. You want to take the mantle of both jobs. It's a lot of work, you know. There
is a lot of work. Not exclusively. I also love to write with people and adapt things. To me, as long as it's a story that I'm invested in and that I can help shape, I'm excited to direct it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got a knack for this, certainly. You know, I think that's a really good first feature. I think it's probably the right movie for you. It seems like, you know, and what you've been telling me and how you've gone about it. And it's an interesting tale about, like, you know, it's fictional world in a sense, but a lot of real life messages to take away from that. It's always interesting to watch something that you can kind of like, oh, this probably could be happening to someone. That's psychological kind of side of a movie. So I thought you did that really well in this one, and of course gave a thrilling story to it along the way. So well done.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I can't wait for the next one from you. So hopefully I get to talk to you soon.
Totally. Great speaking with you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Bye-bye.